In the previous videos of From Nothing to Something, we prototyped an onboarding flow as well as the actual app. In this video, I'll be showing you what that now looks like as well as configuring our backend and payment processor and analytic tools. Okay, this is how our app is currently looking like so far. As you can see, we have our onboarding flow fully complete, so I'll quickly go over that real quick. So here we have that splash screen with the user seats for the first time. Then we ask for some goal selection, right? They're using this app, you want to get some information out of them, so we're going to say something like recomposition. And so we go, and then we ask them what peptides they use. Maybe they use tirzepatide and PPC157. Then we ask for some scheduling. So it shows today's current scheduling, but you can choose any of these. So let's say they use it once a week maybe, and then they inject in the evening. How experienced are you? You have some experience. Missing doses is one of the reasons why they're using the app, and progress tracking. Then we ask some basic information about them. Then we ask for connecting Apple Health. I already had Apple Health connected before this, so that's why it didn't prompt me. But now we have the screen that kind of reels them in with the personalization where it's curating their fully personalized protocol while using this app. Then they get their plan, and then we have our current paywall. Now this is how the app currently looks like. This is the paywall. Now they can select it, I'm pretty sure it's not hooked. And then this is the main app, fully redesigned and functional. So as you can see, the user can scroll down, welcome to Tropin, you have your begin your protocol, and this goes with adding a vial, you can log your doses. And so the next dose, because we chose tirzepatide, shows us that it's in 71 hours. And that's because we have it on Monday, so within 3 days approximately. We have the health metrics specifically curated for when they log a dose, when they're on a compound, and how consistent they are with logging their doses per day. So you have your vials and your cycles. So again, vials is for logging your dose, and then cycles is something like, for logging your doses over an extended period of times for your cycles. So let's say again, recomposition cycle. We have the recomposition cycle, and then again we're on tirzepatide, and then we're using it weekly because it gathered that from the information, and then we're using it for 2 months. And then add some notes, recon body, save cycle, and then if you go back to home page, we can actually see over here, and then we have our daily streak right here, and then yeah. So that's basically it for the main gimmick of the app. The app is practically done. There could be some final polishing, but in this video, I'm going to focus now on 3 specific tools. So the first one is going to be our backend. Now for our backend, we need this obviously to store user data and the users in our database and collecting information and stuff. And so usually people use either Firebase or they use something like Superbase. There's nothing wrong with it and choosing any of them. For Tropin, I'm going to be actually using a different one called Convex. They add a bit, I think they give a bit more, per plans. They have a free plan right here. You get like a lot of stuff with it, right? You have 1 to 6 developers, you have anything you need, and then they actually give you, I believe, 40 environments. Yeah, 40 environments, which is absolutely insane. For comparison, Superbase only gives you 2. And so 40 environments, I mean, I don't know how you're using that, but you can definitely build a lot of apps along that and then have the production version and the development version, and then you can do all of that, right? Staging version. So I'm going to be using Convex, like I said. However, the other 2 things I want to talk about is configuring our RevenueCat slash and Superwall. We specifically need these 2 because RevenueCat is going to be managing our subscriptions, and then we also need Superwall because we need to A/B test our paywalls. And you can actually create paywalls in both plans. However, I'm going to be using Superwall for Tropin because we can then link it for our things right here for the data extraction and collection, and we can see which type of variations really work. User views on our paywall, other types of metrics and data that can be really, really helpful. The third thing is once we collect this data, right? We need to, and not just our paywall data, but our apps data. How are people using our app? What is like the main feature that maybe people are staying for? What is causing churn? What is causing cancellations? How can we measure and take a look at all this data and use it in an applicable way to help grow Tropin? And so one of the tools that we're going to be using is PostHog. Now, if you don't know what PostHog is, I'll show it in a second. But PostHog is basically your data analyst on the side. You basically configure it to your app, and it basically extracts live events where it has these event handlers, and each event it logs and records it. So let's say with PostHog configured, you have maybe like 5,000 viewers who just have your app on like the first day they're on a free trial. PostHog will record and monitor that. PostHog will also monitor key things like what they're specifically tapping on, what sessions they're like mostly on, so what are they viewing the most, and that type of data. And that type of data is really valuable because aside from the paywall itself, it's really telling you what users are actually using and doing inside of your app. And so with that, we can do meaningful stuff and elaborate and expand on other things. And then if users are not using a certain feature, or it's being underutilized, we know that we now need to show the prevalence of that feature and get users to maybe use it more to help reduce churn. So basically, this is what it looks like. A lot of people use PostHog. They do have a free plan as well, which is one really good thing about them. They have this really cool layout. So I already have an account with PostHog, but we can go to our dashboard. And so I already used PostHog to make graphs and visualizations of the app, right? And see what users are using on my apps and see how things are going. You know, PostHog also makes graphs and charts for you to visualize the data as well. And then it's really, really helpful. So yeah, we're going to be using all of those tools right there to actually configure our apps. And so I'm going to start with our database and backend first with Convex. So I'm going to sign in. So I'm now signed into Convex. I'm just going to create a project and I'm going to call it Tropin. It's for our mobile app. And so we're going to be using USE servers because that's what's closest to me and that's what's preferably for our users. And so the default already exists. So as you can see, Convex has two different types of environments. You have your development in the cloud, and then you have your actual production, which is what you ship. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give both of these links for both my production and environment to my coding agent for Cloud Code, and I'm just going to give it all right there. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. It looks like Cloud Code has configured our Convex connection. All we need to do is just log in. Okay, so Convex has finally pushed and configured and deployed all our development and production schema. So now we have a database and backend. So we actually store the users, doses, vials, cycles, stacks, all of that stuff. And then we have function files to retrieve those data. So now we actually sync what the user has with our app. So it's no longer just a meaningless front end. So moving on from that, we're gonna go to now our paywalls. So for our paywalls, I'm gonna go into specifically here. Specifically, I first need to integrate Superwall. So what we're going to first just do is I'm just going to quickly give the skills to Claude Code. I'm going to quickly give this to Claude Code. By the way, I haven't mentioned already, but the way I was able to prototype with the design quite fast and efficiently is after I used Glamour, I just went to a lot of these like UI component libraries, and I'd recommend and advise you to do the same thing here where they can give you actually a lot of good and nice components. And so, so stuff like you have like this really cool wave spinner effect, you have a bar chart, chat demo. This one's really cool as well, where you have like a lot of really like different and unique components, right? You can find all of this in the Shadcyan component registry, where basically you go to I just come here, and then we can go to view components, and then we scroll down to the registry directory that are affiliated with Shadcyan, and then you can go to these libraries like maybe this one right here, and you can see like the really nice UI components. And so, yeah, basically that's how I was able to prototype fast alongside after I took the initial stuff out of Glamour. But moving on, going to our paywall. So moving on, going to our paywall, I now have installed it, the skills for Superwall. Okay, So using the setups with the skills and installing our dependencies with Superwall, I finally configured it up so that our personal and custom UI right here for our paywall is now being fully tracked and monitored by Superwall. For now, I'm not going to be making any custom paywall designs with Superwall or RevenueCat. However, I will be taking this paywall right here and be tracking it with our data for when users come across it and see what's causing conversions and churn, as well as cancellations and users just leaving. So it's fully hooked up to Superwall, as you can see right here. And so all my metrics with views and retention, it's all being tracked. And with that, we can use that data to come up with better paywalls with the data that we have that tells us what's working and what's not working and needs to be changed. So that is it for this video. In the next video, we'll go over ASO, which is App Store Optimization, and that is really one of the essentials for getting visibility on the App Store with your app on it. So hopefully this was a bit insightful for you guys. So to recap what we've done so far, we go to Claude, research this app for peptides, and then we go to Glamour to basically create the skeleton and prototype the design and come up with these designs right here in our app. Then we go to UI libraries in the Shadcyan registry, and we go with those type of protocols. We now just connected our convex backend, and we have our RevenueCat and Superwall configured. And you can also additionally add your PostHog to really see every single click, every single page that's being viewed by users on your app. And as a result, you collect more data and refine and iterate on what's working.